Happy Sabbath, everyone. Hey, really good to see all of you guys here. I know it's been a while since I've actually given a sermon. So, really good to see all of you guys. I have a question before we start. Uh, for this exercise, actually, I want you guys to close your eyes really quickly. Okay? Okay, close your eyes and think of one person that you respect the most. Okay? Think of one person that you respect the most. Okay, open your eyes now. Okay. Have you guys thought of the person that you guys thought of, the person that you respect the most? Okay. Now, with that person, I want you guys to look at this list and see what kind of characteristics, I'll control it from here, that person actually has. Okay? Does that person that you respect, is he full of sexual immorality, impurity, jealousy, anger, division, envy, enmity, strife? I envy him. Not envy. I respect him so much because he's so full of anger. Any of you guys? No, most of you guys, whoever you guys said that you respect, you say you respect that person. Why? Because most likely that person is full of love or joy, peace, or patience, kindness, goodness, self-control, and gentleness. This is the reason why I'm sure you guys have chosen that person as the person that you respect. Absolutely, right? Now, we've been going over what is this list. If you don't know what this list is from, this is actually from Galatians 5. And this is what Paul actually says. Paul says, before I met God, my life was full of this. And now that I'm trying to live with God and walk with God, these are the things that I see in my life. And so we said, we want these kind of things in our lives as well. We don't want to be full of these things. We already have so many of these things. No, we want more of these things in our lives. And so we said, how do we do this? So we phrased this series, Fruits of the Spirit, but really for us, it's really adulting God's way. And the reason is because if we try to do it our way, we realize we get a lot of the list on the left side. But if we try to do it God's way, we realize, hey, love, joy, peace, these things are actually possible. So we went over love already. We went over the overview of what it means to be full of God's Spirit. But today we're going to be talking about joy. Okay? So I always ask a question, but this is a pretty stupid question, probably. So question, do you want to be joyful? Or do you want to have more joy in your life? To use our vernacular, we don't use the word joy too much, but we use the word happy. Okay, so I'll ask again. Do you want to be happy or happier? Now, again, dumb question because most of us, we say, of course I want to be happier. I looked on TED Talks, and I looked at top 10 of the videos that people watched. Out of the top 10, 2 of them directly talked about happiness. 26 million views each. That's a lot of views. Rest of the 8 videos, you can argue that indirectly they actually talk about happiness. And so we see this proliferation of like these books, like psychology books, self-help books, positive thinking, that makes us want to be happier. And we strive after those things. Again, so you go, Pastor, come on. Of course we want more joy. Of course we want more happiness in our lives. However, do you guys know that there's actually more and more people who actually say the search for happiness is actually moronic? Meaning it's really dumb. It's an endless pursuit. I'll give you an example. This person, Amy Bloom, she wrote a New York Times essay, and the article is called "The Rap on R-A-P, Rap on Happiness." And this is what she says. She says, smart people often talk trash about happiness. So what is she saying? She's saying these philosophers, thinkers, intellectual people, they actually say, happiness, what are you talking about? They talk trash on it. And worse than trash talk about happiness, They have been doing so for centuries. Why? Because we don't say that happiness, or where am I? Sorry. Because we don't say that happiness in itself, nor the pursuit, nor their books, is moronic. But it's not a work of a devil, but it's actually moronic itself. Why? Okay, this is why. This is why they say pursuit of happiness, this is all, it's just a pipe dream. Why? The real problem with happiness is neither its pursuer nor the books, it's happiness itself. It's short lasting and it's transient. It's always short. Just when you think you have a grasp of it, it just disappears. The world passes away from us. The petals fall. The beloved dies. No amount of mockery will keep any of us from knowing and savoring the pleasures of the sun on our faces, or save us from the adult understanding that it cannot last forever. What is she saying? She's saying, come on. Grow up. Be an adult. Don't you know everything fades? Don't you know that the search for happiness that you have, do you search for? Come on. What are you talking about? Everything fades. Everything dies. Everybody will disappear. Happiness, forget that. So what's the alternative? Alternative is this. If you want peace, don't ever pursue happiness. Why? You always be disappointed. You'll always be sad. I remember I was in a car with, I was younger. I think I was like a high school student. And I remember my aunt, which was, she's like maybe like 15, 20 years older. I actually don't know. I'm sorry, aunt, if you're watching this. I actually don't no idea. But I remember one of the things she said was, Kirin, don't have high expectation in life, all right? It's like, what? That's not what you say to a kid, but she's basically saying, hey, you're gonna be dissatisfied. You're gonna be unfulfilled. You're gonna be disappointed. I don't want you to be disappointed. So have low expectation. Don't expect too much. And essentially, that's what she's saying, and that's what Amy Bloom is saying. Saying, if you want to be happy, don't that doesn't exist. Okay? If you want more peace, more tranquility in your life, forget about it. And this is essentially what Buddhism really is. Okay? If you want to know more about Buddhism, this is what essentially Buddhism is. Hey, everything that you see, it's going to give you suffering. These attachments that you have in your life, these things that you're afraid to lose, that's what's giving you suffering. So let it go. Let go of everything that you love. Let go of all your dreams and hopes. Let it go. Then you will have true peace. This happiness, forget about it. But peace, you can have peace. There's a movie, pretty famous, Star Wars. And one of the probably the worst movie out of the Star Wars series is a movie called Attack of the Clones. I don't know if you guys watched it. Horrible acting. Anyways, there's a scene in there where Yoda, if you guys don't know Star Wars, Yoda is this like, he's always like tranquil and peace, and he's like this Jedi master that knows it all, right? One of his disciples come to him. His name is Anakin, and Anakin has a dream, and he sees a dream of the future, and he sees someone that he loves, Padme, dying. Right? He sees someone that he loves dying, and so he comes to Yoda and says, what do I do? What do I do? I know that something bad's going to happen to me. And this is what Yoda says. He says, death, and you could imagine Yoda's voice, death, I don't know how you do it. Death is a natural part of life. Rejoice for those around you. After they die, they just transform into force. Mourn them, do not. Miss them, do not. Attachment leads to jealousy. Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. Good old Yoda. Did you guys know? He's actually Buddhist. You guys didn't know that. Okay, so what is he saying? What is Yoda saying? What is Amy Bloom saying? Happiness, what are you talking about? Stop it. Stop it. Grow up. It's a pipe dream. But on the other hand, there's a couple of other people that say, well, we disagree with this. Joseph Epstein, he's a professor at Northwestern. He wrote an article in the Notre Dame Times, or not Notre Dame Times, but Notre Dame magazine. And he says to these kind of ideas where you just have to let go and don't expect anything, this is what he says. He says, my guess is that this program, this kind of thinking, you just let go and you won't be happy and you'll have peace. He says, I think that will actually work. But even if it did work, would such utter detachment from world constitute a life rich, complex enough that it would be worth living for? Many would say yes. I'm not among them. So he understands. He says, okay, fine. But if I detach everything, if I don't pursue anything, if I don't pursue joy, would that be a life worth living? C.S. Lewis, he says it better, and of course, he always says it better. He says this: if you don't want your heart to be broken, don't give it to anything. Okay? Same thing. Don't attach it to anything. Don't give it to anything. Not even to an animal, not even to your doggies. Huh? Lock it up safe in a casket, in a coffin. But in that coffin, it will change. Your heart, it will change. It will not be broken anymore, but it will become unbreakable, unredeemable, impenetrable. What is he basically saying? On the one hand, these people are saying, you pursue happiness, come on. We're never going to be happy. What are you talking about? Everything is transient. Everything just falls away. Everything dies. Everything fades. But C.S. Lewis, Joseph Epstein, what they're saying is, on the other hand, if you don't search for happiness, if you don't search for joy, is that a life worth living? You will become hard. You'll become cold. You'll become cynical. And you guys know some of these people. Like older, like grandpas, like really angry. That's how you become. So, where do we go from here? It seems like we don't have very good options. Let's go to Jesus. So, today's verse is from Romans chapter 5, 1 through 11. And thank you, Maggot, for reading it for us. This is what Christianity says. And these are kind of some of the things that Christianity, joy, when we talk about this concept of joy within the Christian worldview, it's very different from the other views. Let's see how. Number one, not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance. Okay, really weird. Why? Because the way we view happiness in our days, we don't think of happiness like this. Okay, when we look at this, we go, what? That doesn't even make sense. How can you rejoice in suffering? That's not a possibility. Okay, why? It's because for us, we view suffering, okay? Suffering, what is suffering? Well, suffering is basically favorable circumstances going away, right? So, for us, how the world or how we perceive happiness is usually by circumstances. When good things happen in my life, when my job goes well, when my investment or my money is growing, when my boyfriend or girlfriend, husband or wife or kids, I have a good relationship with them, then I have joy. Do you guys know that there's a happiness.com? Of course there is. And this is how they say you find happiness. There's 5 things. You guys want to know? Okay, no? Okay. I'm going to tell you anyways. Number 1, happiness.com says, number 1, you have to have the basics: food, water, shelter, health, safety. Okay. Do you guys have that? Number 2, get enough sleep. Number 3, have relationships that matter to you, that are important to you. Okay? Number 4, be compassionate towards others and towards yourself. And number 5, have work that really is interesting and engages you. Okay. Do you guys have that? So you guys got that? Number 1, basics. Number 2, sleep. Number 3, relationships. Be compassionate and go to have a job that is really interesting and engaging. Huh? Those 5 things, and that's why you have happiness. You see, all of these things, 5 things, these are based on circumstances. But if you really think about it, this list itself is ridiculous. Okay, why is it ridiculous? Because if happiness.com is true and that we need these 5 things for happiness, we're never going to be happy. Do you guys know that vast amount, I mean, we're the lucky ones here, but vast amount of people are not going to have any dream of coming close to these 5 things? Okay, that means for these people, like poor people who don't have basics, for people who are maybe single parent or not getting paid enough, they have to continue to work. They don't enjoy work. They can't do what they want to do. They're never going to have a chance of achieving happiness then. For them, these circumstances will never happen. So if happiness.com is true, then majority of the people on earth will never be happy. It's not available. It's not even an option to them. But Christianity says something different. How is it unique? Why? Because it says we rejoice despite our circumstances. Now, this is very important. Christianity is not saying we rejoice for suffering. It doesn't say that, right? We don't say, yeah, I'm suffering now. It's not masochism, okay? It's not like, yeah, I love pain. I have more. No, it says we can still rejoice. We can still be joyful amidst the circumstances that happen in our lives. And you go, I want that. How is that possible? I want a joy that is unshakable. Because my joy, a lot of times, it goes with circumstances. When my kids are listening to me, I am joyful. When work is great, I am joyful. But when it's not, when investments are not working out, when my boss is cranky to me, then I'm not happy. When I fail on a test, when someone blames me, or someone doesn't think well of me, then I lose joy. But again, Paul says, you know what? Christian joy, you can have joy despite these circumstances. How do we get there? Romans 11, it says, more than that, we also rejoice in God. How do we rejoice despite the circumstances? The way to do it is we don't place our joy in circumstances. Instead, our joy is in God. Now, again, you guys might say, okay, that seems like very religious talk. What does that really mean? Let's get there. This is, by the way, probably one of the most beautiful Bible verses. And this is how we have joy in God, not in circumstances. Despite suffering and pain, this is how we have joy in God. Here we go. But God shows his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Since therefore we now have been justified by his blood, much more shall we be saved by him from the wrath of God. So, some of you guys who get it, this is beautiful. This is what gives us real joy that cannot be shaken. But some of you guys are like, I still don't get it. Okay, good. That's why we come and listen to sermon, so you can hear about that. All right, so let me explain it for you. There's 2 things here that, there's a lot of things that we can talk about, but I'll just talk about 2 things, how we can have joy in God. Okay, 2 things. Number 1, gospel shows you the magnitude of your danger. Okay? The gospel shows you the magnitude of the danger that you are in. Most of us, especially if you grew up in the church, we heard these kind of things before. God saves us, God loves us, God died for us. But most of us, that doesn't bring joy into our hearts because we don't know the magnitude of the danger that we're actually in. I'll give you an illustration of this. Imagine that you go on vacation, or let's just use, yeah, you guys, everybody else, all of us. Let's say we go on vacation for a long time, and we have somebody house sit for us. Just check the postage and bill, and just make sure, if there's anything important to call. You come back to your house after your vacation, and the person who was house sitting says, "Oh, hey, I'm sorry, but there was an urgent letter, urgent a bill that came, and I opened it and I paid for it." Okay, so the question is, how do you react? Okay, it depends. Okay, on how much the bill actually is. Okay, if it's just like $1 or even $50, then you go, "Oh, thanks." But let's say it's actually the letter from the IRS. They finally caught you. Okay, they finally found out where you were. And imagine you have to pay enormous amount of fine, and you have to sell your house and everything else that comes with it, and you will be totally bankrupt because of this bill, because of this debt. How will you react? "Oh, thank you"? No. You will fall on your knees and say, "Thank you so much." This is important, because if you understand the amount of debt that you actually have, it changes whether you just say, "Oh, thank you," or you get on your knees and actually worship. This tells us the magnitude of the danger that we're in. Why? Because it actually tells us that someone had to actually die instead of you. Number 2, the gospel shows us the magnitude of Jesus' pain. There's I think it's a pretty weird verse, but there's a verse in John 16 where it says, now Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he knows that he's going to die and he's going to suffer, and he's trying to encourage the disciples, and this is what he says: "Truly, truly, I say to you, you will weep and lament, but the world will rejoice. You will be sorrowful, but your sorrow will turn into joy." When a woman is giving birth, she has sorrow because her hour has come. But when she has delivered the baby, she no longer remembers the anguish for joy that a human being has been born into the world. Okay. What is Jesus saying here? Now, if you look at commentators, Jesus is actually likening himself to the woman. He's basically saying, I know that I'm going to suffer. I know that I'm going to go through immense pain and tribulation, but it's okay. Because of my suffering and pain, there will be immense amount of joy. Now, a lot of us, of course, majority of women, I don't know how you guys feel, but I'm sure it's a lot of pain. But nowadays we have a thing called epidural, which again I don't know if you got epidural, I don't know if it still hurts or not. I don't know, but I'm sure there is still pain. But remember, this was written in a time where there were no such thing as epidural. So literally, if you were to give birth, you are going to go through excruciating pain. And not only that, there was a time when this was written, when Jesus is speaking, it's talking about a time when many, many mothers would actually die during giving birth. So, within that context, Jesus is saying, this is the amount of pain that I'm willing to go through. I know that there is no epidural. I know that this is going to hurt. I know that I'm actually going to die, but I am willing to go through that for you. And through that, there is joy. Through that, there is happiness. Now, this is really, really important because, again, if you understand the magnitude of our danger and the magnitude of God's pain, then now, whenever we're in circumstances when things are not working out for us, okay? I mean, this doesn't mean that there won't be any disappointments or everything's gonna go right because you became a Christian. That's not what we're talking about. But this is talking about how when you realize that you owe so much to God, but yet He pays all of this for you, and you realize the magnitude of His love for you, that even though you're enemies, that He's willing to love you, He's willing to still save you. That's what gives you joy. For a lot of other religions and a lot of our lives, we grew up thinking this: I have to work, I have to be good, I have to perform, then I will get my verdict. Then I will get my acceptance. Then I will get love from somebody else. But Christianity is the only religion where it actually reverses that. And Christianity says, while you were sinners. It actually goes further. It actually says, while you were still enemies, while you're still attacking me and mocking me and going against me, I am willing to come, knowing the pain and the suffering that I will go through. Why? So that you may have joy, that you may have acceptance, that you may have love that will never shake. And that is the joy that God is offering to us. You see? You see how everything else, if you just base your joy on circumstances, it'll fade away. But if your joy is based on God's love for you, then that will be unshaken. So, we're going to go into time of reflection. And these are some of the questions I want you to think about. Is my joy, or how about this? What makes me happy? Is it money? Is it my relationships? Is it work? Where does my ultimate joy come from? And does my joy decrease significantly when these things are taken away? Where is my joy coming from? God has offered and provided for us the ultimate joy. We can have acceptance, and we can have love, we can have identity, we can have purpose because of what God has done. It's available. Go and get it.